I was 23 years old, and I hated going home, which was already miserable for a dozen other reasons, but worst of all was my new stepsister, Megan. Mom had married her dad a year earlier, and that Valentine's Day they were throwing a huge party for their first anniversary, one I couldn't get out of. On the surface, Megan seemed normal, with her pretty blonde hair and harmless smiles, but something about her made me uncomfortable from the very beginning. At family dinners, she insisted on sitting next to me and would suddenly touch my arm or shoulder. In the hallway, she'd brush against me, even when there was clearly enough space for both of us. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at me. I told Mom about it several times, but she brushed it off. A year had passed, and instead of getting better, it had gotten worse. The party started around 9. Mom had completely overdone it with everything red and pink. Heart-shaped balloons covered the ceiling. Candles were everywhere. Romantic music played in every room. The whole place felt suffocating. I went because I had to, but my plan was simple: stay an hour, make an excuse about meeting friends, and leave. Then a dark-haired girl named Daisy walked in. She was home from college for the weekend and apparently an old friend of Megan's. We started talking by the drinks table and clicked immediately. Before I knew it, 2 hours had passed and I'd completely forgotten my escape plan and Megan. Daisy's phone rang. She apologized and stepped away to take the call. I grabbed another beer and was scrolling on my phone when I felt that familiar crawling sensation. I looked up. Megan was standing right in front of me. I hadn't heard her approach. My palms started sweating. Her smile looked wrong, too tight across her face. "Can we talk, Ryan? It's important." Something in her tone twisted my stomach. "What about?" She grabbed my wrist and pulled me down the hallway, away from the crowd. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Once we were alone, she stopped and turned to face me. Her hands were shaking, but she didn't break eye contact. "I need to tell you something. I've been trying to say it for so long, but I could never find the right moment." "Megan, what's going on?" "I'm in love with you, Ryan. I've been in love with you since the day our parents introduced us. I know you feel it too. I see the way you look at me." My blood ran cold. "Megan, what the hell are you talking about? Your sister." "We're not related by blood," she snapped. "I even asked my dad to divorce your mom." She stepped closer, tears welling in her eyes. "I kept waiting for you to say something, for you to make the first move, but you never did. So I'm saying it now. I love you, Ryan." "This is wrong. It's never gonna happen. Stay away from me, Megan." "Please, Ryan, we're meant to be together." "It's because of Daisy, isn't it?" she hissed. "You're crazy. Just leave me alone." I turned and walked away before she could respond. My hands were shaking violently. I felt nauseous. I went around to the side of the house where no one could see me and pulled out the cigarettes I'd been trying to quit. I lit one with trembling fingers, trying to calm down and figure out what I was supposed to do. Then a scream tore through the night, high-pitched, terrified, and horribly familiar. It came from the woods behind our house. I dropped the cigarette and ran, pushing through the trees, my phone flashlight barely cutting through the darkness. Branches whipped across my face, but I didn't stop until the trees opened into a clearing and I saw 2 figures in the dark. Daisy was on the ground, blood pooling thick and dark beneath her head. Megan stood over her, gripping a jagged rock with both hands. Blood covered the stone, splattered across Megan's face, her pink dress, her arms, as she brought the rock down again and again. "Ryan is mine," Megan kept repeating as she struck her again and again. My legs wouldn't move. My brain couldn't process what I was seeing. Megan looked up and locked eyes with me. She was smiling from ear to ear. She was trying to take you away from me, but you're mine, Ryan. You've always been mine, from the first second I saw you. Something inside me finally snapped. I stumbled backward and ran towards the house, screaming for help. Mom and her dad came running, followed by guests. I couldn't speak. I just pointed towards the woods with a shaking hand. Someone called 911. My legs gave out and I collapsed on the patio, unable to stand or even breathe. The police found Megan in the woods, still kneeling beside Daisy's body. She didn't resist arrest. She just kept repeating the same thing over and over. Ryan is mine. Daisy was dead before the ambulance arrived. That was 6 months ago. Megan is awaiting trial right now. There have been psychiatric evaluations, competency hearings, endless legal proceedings. My mom and her dad divorced 2 months later. We don't talk about that night, or about anything, really. But the letters keep coming every week with the same message every time. I'm still waiting for you, Ryan. I've been patient. You're mine forever. I've moved twice since then and changed my number 3 times. The trial is coming up soon. They want me to testify. I will. I owe that to Daisy. I just hope that when it's finally over, when Megan is locked away for life, the letters will stop. But deep down, I don't think they ever will, because in Megan's mind, I still belong to her. I always have, and no prison wall will ever change that. Megan's obsession was written in blood, but some nightmares are carved in ice and cornstalks. If your heart is still racing, tap that like button to signal you're still with us. And if you haven't yet, join our circle in the shadows by subscribing now. It's the only way to ensure you find your way back from our next stop, an empty house on Highway 47 that refuses to let its guests leave, even after death. Valentine's Day is for the living, but on Highway 47, I found myself crashing a dinner party for the dead. Last year on Valentine's Day, I'd planned a whole surprise for my wife, Sarah. I was going to get home early, bring her flowers, and take her out to dinner somewhere nice, but my tire blew out on Highway 47, with nothing but empty cornfields stretching for miles. I tried calling her, but my phone kept losing signal. I looked around and noticed a faint yellow glow cutting through the darkness. Squinting, I realized it was a small house sitting alone in the middle of a cornfield about a quarter mile off the road. The yellow glow was coming from its porch light. I didn't really have a choice. It was after 9 p.m., freezing cold, and I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. I crossed the field toward the house. The corn was dead, the brittle stalks snapping under my boots. The closer I got, the more I saw how old the place was. Peeling paint, crooked shutters, but music was playing inside. An old romantic classic with way too much saxophone. I knocked on the door, and a woman answered. She was wearing a beautiful red dress, her hair styled, makeup flawless, like she was heading to an elegant party. She looked surprised to see me. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I'm sorry to bother you, ma'am. My car broke down on the highway, and my phone doesn't have service. Would it be possible to use yours?" She smiled. "Of course. Come in. It's freezing out there." I stepped inside and immediately felt like I'd interrupted something important. The house was decorated for Valentine's Day. Candles everywhere, roses in vases, romantic music playing on an old record player. A man sat in an armchair in the living room. He was wearing a tuxedo, but he looked older, worn down. He stared at me with an unreadable expression, like I'd ruined his evening. The woman pointed down a hallway and said the phone was at the end. I kept thanking her as I followed. "Martha," she said, showing me into a small room with a landline phone. "Take your time." She left. A A few moments later, I heard the couple arguing. "You always do this." Harold's voice grew louder. "You always ruin our night." "I'm not ruining anything. He'll be gone in 5 minutes, Harold. This was supposed to be special, just us." I called Sarah voicemail. I told her the car had broken down on 47 and that I was okay, just running really late. I hung up and turned to leave, then froze when I noticed a warped shadow sliding along the wall. I looked over my shoulder and saw the adjacent door slightly open, light spilling through the crack, casting a human-shaped silhouette across the plaster. Heart pounding, I stepped closer and peeked inside. It was a bedroom. A woman lay face down on the bed, wearing a red dress. The same red dress Martha was wearing. A knife was buried between her shoulder blades. The blood had dried long ago, rust brown and stiff against the sheets. My brain couldn't process it. "You shouldn't have looked," a voice whispered in my ear. Terrified, I spun around to find Harold standing inches away. "You've ruined everything." His eyes looked lifeless. I wanted tonight to be special. My heart nearly stopped. Without thinking, I bolted down the hallway, past Martha, still smiling in the living room, out the front door, and across the cornfield, the dead stalks whipping against my face. I reached my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. I tried calling 911, but still no signal. Every few seconds, I glanced back at the house. Suddenly, a woman in a red dress appeared in the cornfield about 20 feet away, standing there, staring at me. I blinked and she was gone. Then she reappeared, closer this time, smiling. I screamed and she vanished again. My eyes started watering as it kept happening. Every few seconds, she would appear, closer and closer, then disappear. I stayed in that car for 2 hours until a patrol unit finally drove by. The officers asked if I was okay, said I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told them there was a house in the field, that a man had killed his wife, that I'd seen her body. They looked at me like I was crazy, but they called it in. More officers arrived, and I led them to the house. We crossed the field with flashlights. The house was there, but completely dark now. One of the officers tried the handle. It was unlocked. Inside, everything was covered in dust. They found Martha in the bedroom, a knife in her back. Harold was in the bathroom, an empty pill bottle on the floor. An officer asked when I had been there. With them? I don't know. 2 hours ago they were alive. They spoke to me. He placed a hand on my shoulder. "Sir, based on the decomposition, they've been dead at least 24 hours. I couldn't speak. The officer took my statement and helped arrange a tow for my car. The autopsy confirmed the couple had died more than a day before I knocked on that door. Harold killed Martha the day before Valentine's Day, then swallowed a bottle of pills. They planned a romantic evening, he snapped, and somehow they were still trying to live it. I think about it constant, the rage in Harold's eyes when I interrupted them, and Martha's smile. I still close my eyes and see her stepping out of that cornfield over and over again, staring at me. My wife thinks I had some kind of breakdown, that I imagined everything, but I know what I saw. Some people regret so deeply they can't move on, even after death, and others hate each other so much they stay trapped together forever. I think Harold and Martha were both. My son Bryce is 15. And like most teenagers, he can be difficult sometimes. I love him, but there are days. My son, Bryce, is 15, and like most teenagers, he can be difficult sometimes. I love him, but there are days when he really tests my patience, like the day I caught him and his friends making fun of Oliver Cox in the school parking lot. Oliver was that skinny kid with glasses so thick they made his eyes look huge. The other kids called him Creepy Ollie. I'd seen him get shoved around before, and it made me sick. So, when I pulled up and saw Bryce standing there with Jake and Tyler, circling Oliver and exaggerating a limp to mock him, I'd had enough. I got out of the car and walked straight toward them. My son's face shifted from cocky to horrified in seconds as his friends scattered. "Mom, you were bullying your classmate. Apologize, now." Bryce muttered something that barely sounded like sorry. I turned to Oliver, placed a hand on his shoulder, and gave him an apologetic smile. His face flushed red with gratitude. "Thank you for standing up for me," he said. He kept giving me that shy, thankful smile while I walked Bryce back to the car. The entire drive home, Bryce wouldn't look at me. He kept saying I'd made a mistake taking Oliver's side, but I honestly didn't understand why. It took him a few hours to cool off, but eventually he promised he'd never bully another kid again. 3 weeks later, on Valentine's night, I was home alone. My husband was working the night shift, and Bryce was at a sleepover. I was watching TV when, around 9:30 p.m., the doorbell rang. I got up, but I couldn't see anyone through the peephole. I figured it was probably teenagers messing around and went back to the couch. 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang again. Then again. By the 5th time, I was so irritated that I yanked the door open and yelled that I was calling the police. That's when something moved in the bushes. I shined my phone's flashlight toward the sound, and a head popped up. It was Oliver. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson. I'm sorry about the doorbell. I was nervous." He was shivering in just a hoodie. "Nervous about what? Does your mom know you're here?" I asked. He shook his head. His teeth were chattering. I let him inside and gave him some tea. "Oliver, it's almost 10 p.m. What's going on? I had to see you." "Why?" "Something happened." He set the cup down, stood up, then suddenly dropped to his knees. I laughed at first, thinking it was some kind of joke. It wasn't. He pulled out a small velvet box. "Mrs. Thompson, Florence, will you be my Valentine?" The smile vanished from my face. "Oliver, I think you're confused. I'm a 42-year-old married woman. I'm your classmate's mother. I'm sure there's a girl at school who—" "Please, just open it," he interrupted. His voice was shaking, and his eyes— God, I'll never forget their desperate look. "I want you to see how much I love you." The word made my stomach turn. My hands trembled as I took the box. Inside wasn't a ring. It was a human molar, root still attached, crusted with dried blood. I screamed and dropped it. The box hit the tile floor with a sharp crack. "Oliver, what the hell is this?" His smile widened, revealing the bloody gap in the back of his mouth where the tooth had been. The gums were still bleeding. "I pulled it out myself," he said, almost proudly. "Oliver, you need help." "It's not help, it's love," he shouted. "You were nice to me. You defended me. That means you care about me. You have to be my Valentine, Florence. You have to." He grabbed a plate and hurled it against the wall. It shattered. "Oliver, stop. I love you." Tears and snot ran down his face. He swept everything off the counter, the coffee maker, utensils, a knife, crashing onto the floor. "Why don't you love me back? What's wrong with me?" He started slamming his head against the wall. Blood began running down onto the floor. "I'm so stupid. Nobody wants me." With shaking hands, I dialed 911. And told them a 15-year-old was having a breakdown in my kitchen, destroying everything and hurting himself. Oliver collapsed, sobbing and pounding the tile floor with his bloody hands. The police arrived quickly. 2 officers entered slowly while he rocked back and forth on the floor. Oliver looked up at me. His face was covered in tears, mucus and blood. They lifted him up and led him outside. His parents had just arrived. His mother was sobbing. His father looked like he'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. He kept apologizing over and over, while Oliver stared at me from the back of the squad car with that same unsettling smile. The next morning, the principal called to tell me Oliver was undergoing psychiatric evaluation. It wasn't the first incident. Last year, Mrs. Rodriguez had broken up a fight where he was being bullied. A week later, he showed up at her house at midnight with roses and a 10-page love letter. When she rejected him, he had a meltdown in her yard. Anyone who showed him kindness became an obsession. His therapist said it was severe emotional neglect, that any positive attention triggered this kind of response. I hung up and sat in my wrecked kitchen, staring at that tooth in the velvet box on the floor. A 15-year-old kid had ripped it out to prove he loved me. I did the right thing that day in the parking lot. I know I did. But sometimes doing the right thing comes back to haunt you in ways you never expect. I think about Oliver sometimes. I wonder if he's doing better, if he still thinks about me. And I hate that I'm afraid of the answer.